All right, very well. So in our new document, okay, I'm going to give it a title, working with strings, functions, and loops. Okay, so what we need is an external file, script, type, text, JavaScript, and the source will be functions.javascript. So obviously I will need a new file, functions JavaScript. All right. So the idea will be first just to make sure we understand the difference between a function, between just code being executed automatically, right? We're gonna start just by rendering the chessboard without a function. Okay, a function is required whenever we want to hold some code, we want to have some kind of algorithm that we do not want to execute unless we call it. If we do not write a function, then it will be executed immediately. Okay, for instance, an alert, hello world. By the way, alert is a predefined function. It's a built-in function in JavaScript, right? Okay, so when I execute my HTML, boom, hello world. It's executed right away, right? On the other hand, if I create a function, okay, let's call this function call me. Right? Now the alert is contained inside a function, so the function is not executed. Okay, I refresh the page and the function is not executed. The way to call a function is just by writing the function call me. And there you go, it's executed. Another way to call a function is by an action in HTML, as we have seen before. I can have a button, for instance, right, with an action on click equals a function. So my function will be, whoa, what is that? Anyways, so the function will be call me. Okay. So now I'm gonna call the function call me when I click on the button. So I refresh the page. There's my button, which by the way has no content. Let me just push the button. Okay, there you go. Push the button, then on click, I call my function call me. So that's a way of calling the function. And there is many actions. For example, I can have a division. Just quickly, I'm gonna give it a style with, let's say, 400 pixels, height 400 pixels. Okay, and a border 1 pixel solid green. Okay, so there I have, you know what, just a background. That's going to be more visible. There, I have a green division. I can have on click. I can have on mouse over. Call me. So now when I pass the mouse over, I can call my function. Right? Another way of calling a function is after the page is loaded. To wait for the page to load, on JavaScript, there is something called window.onload. And window.onload is another action. We can call it as another action. We're going to wait for the window to load, and that is going to trigger what? A function. That's why we say window.onload equals function. Meaning when the window is loaded, I'm going to execute a function. What function? Well, whatever I write in here is going to be part of my function. Right? So now I can wait for the document to load and just call me as well, call me. Right? So then the page is loaded and I see hello world. How do I know that the page is loaded? Well, because in the background I can actually see the button, I can see the division, right? If I didn't wait for the page to load and I just call the function outside the window.onload, then the function is called, but I don't see anything in the back, meaning the page is not loaded yet, right? So there are several ways of calling a function. Are just writing it down, waiting for the page to load, or having a trigger, having an action inside an HTML element, such as on click, such as on mouse over. In forms, we're going to have on submit. Okay? So that was just a little recap about functions. All right. So the exercise we're going to try today is creating a chessboard. So for that, since I have an external file and I'm going to be inserting data, inserting HTML inside my HTML file coming from the external file, I need some kind of element where I can insert code, right? So I'm going to create a division with an ID, and let's say chess wrapper. So that's where my chessboard is going to appear, inside that element. Okay? So now, I have several options. What do I want? I want it to appear right away as the page is loaded. I want to wait for an action. Do I want to have a button that says generate chessboard? It all depends, right? I want it to appear right away. Then on window.onload, I'm going just to write my code to generate the chessboard. As the page loads, right away insert the chessboard. I don't need any other action. I don't need a button. I don't need anything else. Perfect. So let's try that. I'm going to look for my element, chess wrapper, right? So to do so, document.get element by ID. Chess wrapper. By the way, I need to do this inside document onload, at least inside window onload, because I need my element to exist. I need to wait for my HTML to complete loading, my DOM, my document object model, to be created, so then JavaScript can find the element with ID chess wrapper, right? If I do not have document on load, window on load, I just execute it like that, that is going to give me an error. It's going to tell me I couldn't find that element, right? Because functions.javascript is being called at line 7. And at line 7, chess does not exist yet. Chess will be created until line 11. So at line 7, when I call my functions and I look for that element, it's not going to find it. That's why I wait for the window to load. Once everything is loaded, then I can find the element chess wrapper. Okay. So today we're going to be working with variables containing objects. I'm going to create a new variable now called chess wrapper or chess frame. Doesn't matter. Chess frame will contain the whole document, the whole element. Sorry. Inside the variable chess frame, I have everything about the element. And I do that so it's easier for me to manipulate the element. I don't have to call every time document.getElement by ID chess wrapper. I just have to call chess frame now. And with chess frame, I can get the inner HTML. I could get maybe some CSS property, right? Any attribute, the class, if it had a class, the ID, etc. I can get any attribute from chess frame now. And this is faster to code than having to write document.getElement by ID all the time. Yes? So chess frame will contain the whole element. Okay. Now, what we're going to do then, we said, is that we're going to insert inside chess frame a chessboard. Let's first try to see if this is working. Chess frame, since we are talking about a division that has actually content in the inner HTML, right? It's a tag that opens and closes and internally has HTML. So we use dot inner HTML, and I can insert anything I want. Let's say I'm going to insert hello world, just to see if it's working. So I'm going to insert into chess frame or chess wrapper hello world. There, it worked. Let's try something else. Let's apply some CSS to it from JavaScript. So chess frame dot style dot let's say the width equals 800 pixels. I'm going to change also the height.
That's just another way of styling it, that you could do it with the ID also in CSS.
Yeah. And I'm going to change the border for now to 3 pixels solid CCC. Right? So from the element, I can change the style, and each style, I mean, inside the attribute style, I can have width, height, border, etc. Right? So let's see. There you go. It worked. I have a huge 800 by 800 square with a 3 pixel border. I think that's huge. Let me make it well, we'll see, 400 by 400. Let's start with that. Okay. So it's working, right? I have my element chess frame that contains an element whose ID is chess wrapper. So chess frame is actually this guy right here. That's what it means. And now I can start manipulating it from JavaScript, okay? All right. So let's get into the real algorithm of creating the chessboard. A chessboard has many columns, many rows, right? And it changes color in each cell. First is black, then white, black, white, black, white. So it seems like we have to repeat things many times. We have to create many rows and many columns. So this sounds like a loop, okay? So we're gonna create a loop, a for loop. We're gonna start at 0, okay? And we're gonna do this according to the number of rows that we need. So a chessboard is 8 by 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So it's an 8 by 8. Right? So I'm going to repeat this at least 8 times for my 8 rows. So I'm going to start at position 0. And if I'm going to repeat this 8 times, from 0 to 7 is 8 times. Right? So I'll do this while I is smaller than 8. Meaning 7 is not going to be reached. Sorry, 8 is not going to be reached. We can absolutely write I equal to 1, and then, well, I is more than 9, for example.
Yeah, that's how I do it.
That's another way. Or I equal to 1, and while I is smaller equal to 8. That's another way of doing it. The reason why we start with 0 is because in programming, everything starts in 0. So most of the times, you want to start in 0 so you can actually use I, for example, in arrays. Arrays start in position 0. So when you use a loop combined with an array, you want to make sure that you're able to get into the position 0 of an array, meaning from the very beginning. So we start at 0. Okay? In this case, let's say, just to make it more clear, we're going to start our variable I equal to 1. We're going to repeat our loop 8 times, right? And we're going to do this one step at a time, so I plus plus. We're going to increment I every single time. Okay? And just to make sure that this is working, I want to insert into chess frame inside the inner HTML. I'm going to insert something to test. So let's insert I. Right? I. Now, look how I'm making it equal to I. Meaning every time I insert into chess frame, I am replacing the old value for a new value. Okay? Therefore, by the end of my loop, I only have 8. Because I went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then the last element, the last value to be inserted was 8. Right? If I would like to keep on adding these values, if I want to concatenate inside of my HTML, we use plus equal. And then plus equal is going to keep on inserting. So I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay? So plus equal concatenates into a value.
Why is it? I don't understand why it's still 8.
Okay, so we're going to change then here I equal to 0. And while I is smaller than, just like smaller than 8. And that's still a loop of 8 times, right? From 0 to 7. Plus equal. So now we're supposed to see from 0 to 7. That's 8 times. Including 0, it's 8 times. Okay? So my loop is working. Perfect. Now, the idea here is to create a table inside my loop and insert it into the HTML. But we have a little problem. The problem is that browsers that try to fix things for you. For example, if I have a table, okay, let me just add a little script, a little styling here, style, type, text, JavaScript, no, text CSS.
So now you're making a square.
Yeah, let's say 2 pixels, solid, ref. Okay, so browsers, they try to be intelligent. What does that mean? It means that if you make an error on your code, it's going to try to fix it. For example, I'm going to write a table with some error inside. Table row, table division, table division, table row, and then other 2 table divisions. Okay? If I execute this table, it's going to try to fix it. There's an error. The error is that I do not have a closing table row. I'm missing a closing table row. Right? So instead of crashing completely, it's going to try to solve it for me. Right? It solved it. I mean, it actually worked. Even without this closing table row, it actually worked. So it's intelligent and it's trying to solve it. So let's go into Firebug, look into that element. Where's Firebug? Okay. So I'm going to look into the first table row, and it's there, opening and closing, you see? And the second one, opening and closing. It actually closed it for me. Yeah? It actually closed it for me, even if it was, even if the closing table row was not there. So now, keeping that in mind, if we go into JavaScript and we start inserting inside our loop table rows, table divisions, etc., every time we insert a table row, Firefox or the browser is going to try to fix the code because there's a table row, a closing table row missing. So it's going to close it for you before you even have the chance to insert table divisions. So every time you insert something that is incomplete, it's not going to wait for the whole loop to finish. The moment it inserts a table division, it inserts a table row, it's going to try to close it. So in this loop, for example, I'm going to insert into chessFrame dot inner HTML. I'm going to try to insert a table. So obviously the opening table tag and the closing table tag must be outside the loop, because those I don't want to repeat them. Right? So what I want to repeat is each table row. So I want to insert a table row. Thank you. And I want to insert a closing table row. And inside that table row, I want to insert a table division and a closing table division. right? So 2 table divisions per table row. So I have a table row, opening table row, closing table row, and inside 2 table divisions. All of this inserted into chess frame, right? So I'm just gonna get rid of the, oh, it's gone. The table that I had here is gone. So okay, inside chess frame now, I'm only gonna try to insert this table, which we should be able to see because there's already some styling for a table division. Okay, so we execute the code here, and we don't see the table. It's not being inserted. Now, if I go check into Firebug, you see there's nothing there. So the problem is that it was inserting a table, which it closed automatically. On line 11, it inserted a table. It closed it automatically without any table rows, table divisions inside. Then I'm trying to insert a table row, which was closed automatically as well. So that's why I cannot just insert line by line of a table, because the browser is going to try to fix that for me. Instead, I can create a very big string with all my table. Once that my string is finished, I insert the whole string. Okay? So I'm going to create a variable here, a global variable, another one, variable chess HTML. Okay. No, these are global variables after the document load. I mean, it's still global. If I have any function inside, it's going to be global. But you're right. Outside the function, that's better. Absolutely. I agree with you. Problem is that this one is not going to work because the document get by ID is not going to find it unless the window is loaded. So this one can absolutely not be outside the window load. It can't. This one could, no problem, but not chess frame. Chess frame requires the whole document to be loaded. Okay? So very good. I have a variable chess HTML. Great. So now I'm going to add to chess HTML, I'm going to add every single part of my string. So the first part of my string is the opening table. Then I'm going to add every single line with a plus equal. I'm going to concatenate every line inside chess HTML. I'm going to create a chain here of strings. Right? So now the table, which opens here, will contain 8 table rows, each table row with 2 table divisions. Once the loop is done, I'm going to close the table. And all of this is saved inside a variable chess HTML. So the variable that contains the whole string of my table, now I can insert it into chess frame dot inner HTML equals chess HTML. Okay, so there we go. We have our string with all the table, and I'm going to insert it into chess frame. Let's see. There you go. Right? Well, it's bigger than my frame, but it worked. Which means that my code was correct before. It's just that it couldn't insert it because the browser was trying to fix the code every time I was inserting it. But now the difference is that the whole table is created and I insert it in just once. Everything is inserted at once. Okay? So remember, the best practice when you create content in a loop, save it inside a variable, concatenate everything, make a chain of strings, add them into a single variable. Once you're done, insert it into HTML. All right. So for our chessboard, then we will need 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 divisions, right? Like this one. So I will need 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, you know what? I'm going to open close them in one single. Open close. Open close. Open close. Open close. That's easier. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I need 8 like this. Right? Much better. And now, obviously, my frame is smaller because I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the height, yeah, the height is 50 times 8, 400 plus 2 pixels of borders each time. 2 on the top, 2 on the bottom, that's 4. 4 times 8. 32 plus, how much I said before? 432. So chess wrapper, let's give it a height of 432. But that should be the same case for the width though. And it fits perfectly on the width. Oh yeah, you know why? Because it's, even if the width was smaller, I think it's growing with it.
Yeah,
So yeah, let's see. 432. Not there yet. And you know what? I have spacing between. Another thing, tables, there's something called cell spacing. Okay? So let me just get rid of all the margins and all the.
Well, it looks nice like that. Just the measuring tool.
And there is also a way to remove the cell spacing, the margin between cells. That I still have to get rid of the spacing in between, right? But we can look at that later. What I'm gonna do now, just with Firebug, select my wrapper and just modify it here manually. The height should be 450. So then the width should also be 450 pixels. There you go. So 450 by 450. Excellent. Okay, so if we want to center the chess frame, then I'll have to modify style.margin. The value would be auto, right? And maybe a little margin from the top of 40 pixels. Nope. What did I miss? Okay, here guys. Margin top is very special because margin top in CSS has a dash, right? But in JavaScript that means minus. So we cannot use margin top like that. For the margin top, actually that's why Dreamweaver sometimes is useful. Dreamweaver will give you the exact type. Who's using Dreamweaver here? Can you? What is it? Capital T. Okay. Yeah, Dreamweaver will give you the hint for margin top. Okay, so it's margin capital T. Why? Because if we have dash top, that means margin minus top. So we have to change it to margin top. There you go. Very nice. Okay, so now this is about creating a chessboard. We want to go one by one. So let's start by adding numbers inside. Okay, I'm gonna add a number. To add a number, I'm going to concatenate inside the string the value of I. So, to concatenate, I start my string with a single quote. I'm going to finish it in the middle. I'm going to add a variable which is I, and then I'm going to add the next part of my string. So if I spread it out, right, is string plus variable plus string. Okay? So I'm going to do this for each one of my table divisions. And we're adding these numbers to try to figure out a pattern, so that we can actually decide how to insert either white or black. Okay? No, sorry. This is one. No. Okay, it works like this, right? So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. Those are the rows. But this the first one. I'm going to write a comma here, comma 1, comma 2, comma 3, comma 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. So this one here should be black. The next one should be white, black, white, black, white. Can we make a relation between the number and the color? So apparently all the blacks are odd numbers, right? Sorry, here, here, black, then black here, while the white ones are going to be even, at least for the first row. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Now, if I am going to be working with these values as numbers, I'm going to introduce to you something new, which is a loop inside a loop called nested loop. Okay? A nested loop will execute this part of the code 8 times by itself inside the loop. Inside a loop. So I have a loop that is going to execute 8 times, and inside of it another 8 times. So it's going to be a power. So it's going to make it 64 times. Okay? So inside I'm going to have another loop. I'm just going to copy this for loop here, put it inside. It's also 8 times, right? From 1 to 8. And I'm going to close my loop here. Now, instead of having 8 times, I just need 1. The loop is going to do the 8 times for me. And here's the thing. When you have a nested loop, when you have a loop inside a loop, you cannot use the same variable. Because I'm going to start at 0, and then my inner loop, my nested loop, is going to restart it at 0 again, do it 8 times. By the time I'm out of the loop, it's already 8. So it's not going to repeat it again. Okay? The nested loop is going to change the value of that I. So usually when we use nested loops, the next loop we use the variable k. You can use any variable, but usually k is for an inner loop. So whenever you're going to look into someone's code, if you find a k, you can understand, oh, I'm in an inner loop. If you find an I, okay, I'm in the first loop. Okay? I'm going to write a comment here.
So you only kept 1 TR in the first loop?
So I'm going to print I, and I'm going to print k. And you will see what's going to happen. I and k. All right. So I am inserting I and K. So therefore, at the end, when I see the chess, I'm going to see in what position of my loop I am in I, and also what position of K. Right? So let's see. I'm gonna go back to the board, refresh, and there you go. Position 0, 0, 0, 1, 0, 2, which means that all of the first row is in I0, the first one, and internally it went from 0 to 7. After that, position 1 on I, from 0 to 7 in K. Position 2 in I, from 0 to 7 in K, so on and so forth. Okay, so I am able to create any, with this little code here, I am able to create any size of table in a matter of seconds. Right? I am going to just comment a bit the styling for the chess frame. Okay, I really only want to see my table. And now tell me, if I want to make 100 by 100, imagine coding in HTML 100 by 100 table. Okay, well now with this little loop from 0 to 99, and internally from 0 to 99, and I have automatically a table that is 100 by 100. These will take you like hours. I don't know. Well, maybe not hours, but a long time. All right. Okay, so back to our chessboard. So we said that each even number is supposed to be black, and each odd number is supposed to be white. Therefore, what I'm going to do here, I'm going to create a variable. Let's call it TD class. And I'm going to start by a class black. Okay? Now, I'm going to give a class to each TD. So class will be equal to, I'm going to concatenate my variable TD class. End of string plus variable TD class plus start of string. If you do what I'm doing, you're never gonna get lost. Sometimes it's complicated to read this because you have double quotes, single quotes, plus, blah, blah, blah. But if you actually follow the rule, you're gonna be fine. So class equals, and we know that every attribute equals a value with double quotes. That's HTML. We cannot change that. Right? Then inside of my class, I want to insert a variable, a JavaScript variable. So I'm going to concatenate it. How do you concatenate? By open string. Then here I'm going to close my string. I'm going to add my variable, TD class. And I'm going to add another string. So plus start of string with a single quote. And that's it. Okay, so this variable TD class is equal to black. So basically the class right now equals black. That's what it's saying. Class equals black. So I'm gonna create a black class on my CSS, black, which basically is just background black. I'm going to make the color of the font white. Okay, and now that I'm here, I'm going also to create a class white with the background white and the color of the font black. Okay, so I have two classes, one for the different type of cell. Okay, back to my functions. I'm going to initialize my variable TD class as black. If I execute my code now, all my cells are going to be black. Right? But I want to alternate 1 and 1. So we said that even numbers are black, odd numbers are white, at least for the first row. That's how it works on the first row. So let's try to solve our first row. So in order to know which value of k is odd or which one is even, because we're looking for k, right? K, 0, 1, 2, 3, we're looking for k. There is something called modulus. And modulus is going to give us the remainder of a division. For example, if I make 1 divided by 2, the result is in integers is 0, and the remainder is then the remainder is 1. If I make 2 over 2, that's equal to 1, and the remainder is 0. If I make 5 over 2, that's equal to 2, and the remainder is 1. Correct? So modulus will give us a remainder, and the operational sign, the sign for modulus is percentage. So, for example, k modulus 2 is going to give us back a remainder 1 or 0. For the even numbers, is going to give us 0. For the odd numbers, is going to give us 1. For example, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to write here some comments here. This is going to be the value. We're always going to do the modulus 2, mod 2, and we'll see what the remainder will be. Remainder, okay? Now, if I start at 0, modulus 2, what's the remainder? 0. 0 divided by 2? 0. And how many units I have left? 0. 1 modulus 2. Right? 1 over 2 is equal to 0. And the remainder is 1. 2 modulus 2. Okay? 2 over 2, 1. And the remainder, 0. Exactly 0. 3 modulus 2. 3 over 2, 1 as well. But I have a remainder of 1. Right? So you see here I have 0, 1, 0, 1. Meaning all my even numbers are 0. Because they don't have remainder. If they're pairs. Every even number I can divide it exactly by 2. Right? 4, 6, 8, 10, they are exactly divided by 2. While even numbers, I can divide it by 2, but I'm going to have a remainder of 1. The odd numbers. Okay? So even numbers, you see, 0, 2, and 4, they are modulus 2 is 0, while 1, 3, and in this case 5 will be the next one. The remainder will be 1. Okay? So in this way we can know which ones are odd, which ones are even. So we're going to use a little conditional here, and we say if k mod 2 is equal to 0,
So what you want the
black.
you want even theta?
Yeah, so TD class equals black. Else,
Then
the opposite. TD class equals white.
basically using everything in random form.
And it worked. All my odd numbers are white. All my even numbers are black. But that's not a chessboard yet. On the next round,
No, the opposite.
I want the opposite. Right? Okay, so we're saying that now we want to make sure to make our board look like a chessboard. The first row is okay, but the second one now should start with white, black, white, black. So if we can determine, if we can say that the order in the table divisions, the order of the colors was given by k. If k was even is black, if k was odd is white, then the order in each row will be given by I. If I is even, start with black. If I is odd, start with white. Right? So if I go to my code, then I need to say, let's add it here. If I mod 2 is 0, meaning is even, I'm going to put a comment, start with black. Else, start with black. The line of k, the conditional for k, it's telling me where to start. Start with black, start with white. No, sorry. It's telling me which one goes first. First goes black, then white. Black, white. Right? Therefore, if I inverse them, if I inverse k for white and black, then it's going to start at white, continue with black, so on and so forth. Okay? So, I can just then say, if I is even, start with black. Else, start with white. It was not so complicated. Yeah. So if each row is even, start with black. If each row is odd, else, start with white. Save. And we got a chessboard. Here the importance is really to try, is to sit down and try to break your head and go as far as you can. Even if you're not successful the first time, by the time you see the answer, at least you have some experimentation in it, so you will be able to understand the answer better. Oh, that's why I couldn't do it. But if you don't try at all and you just get the answer, it will be more difficult for you to be able to come up with a solution by yourselves. You have to try and try and try, even if it's wrong. Try it. It's very important to try it. Okay? If you sit down, if I tell you how to drive a manual car, I just tell you, okay, you have to push the accelerator, or you have to let the clutch out. If you want to change the speed, you have to push the clutch and change the speed. If I just tell you this and you go and sit down on the car, you're not going to be able to do it. You're going to be able to do it after practicing a few times, then you will be able to start the car. But just by listening to how it's supposed to be done, you won't be able to do it. You have to practice it. Okay? So you have to try. There's no other way. Unfortunately, there's no other way but trying. Okay? So that was about loops, nested loops. Again, the way it works is that I have a variable chess.html. Chess.html will contain a string. That string has a table, which is generated through loops. The first loop is for each table row. The second loop is for each table division inside. When I have nested loops, the first variable usually is I. The second variable for my inner loop usually is k. I shouldn't use I again, because if not, I will rewrite the value of I for the first loop. Okay? So then what we do, we check if I, meaning if the row is even, start with black. If the row is odd, start with white. Okay, and we just concatenate everything into our chess HTML variable that has a string of all the table. We close our table rows, we close our table, and we insert that variable containing all the table into chessFrame.innerHTML, which is the element that we got at the beginning with get element by ID. ID chess wrapper. It's a division inside HTML with ID chess wrapper. Okay, now this is on window on load. There's no action. The action is when the window loads, start creating my board. If I want to have a function creating a board, right? I want to say, okay, create a board, function, generate board. Then I just have to put inside my function all my algorithm, everything. Okay? Window on load now is empty. So now I have a function that actually generates a board. But I'm not calling it. Right? I need to call the function. If I just call the function, for example, inside the document, the window on load, I can just call it in here. So by the time the window loads, it calls my function, it generates the board. Or a button. I'm gonna go to HTML. I'm gonna have a button here that says generate chessboard. Cheese. Then this button must call my function with some action like onClick equals the name of the function. Generate chessboard, bang, and I got my chessboard. Okay. So we're going to finish this exercise by making our function dynamic, meaning I can manipulate the output of the function according to variables that I'm going to input. So let's say that I want to determine the width and the height, or how many table rows and how many table divisions I want for my board, right? So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna create two inputs. So cells input type text ID cell, name cell, value empty, break. I'm gonna ask for how many rows. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to ask the user, okay, how many cells and how many rows do you want? Generate chessboard, and it's going to give me a board of that size. Okay. So every time we have inputs, we need to call their value, right? So to do so, when I call my function generate board, I need to call whatever was written in the cells. So I'm going to create a variable for cell number, which is equal to document dot get element by ID. The ID that I gave to my cell input was cell. Dot value. And the same thing for the number of rows. Row number equal to document given by ID row. So that's it. When I call my function generate board, I'm going to get the values written inside the inputs. Now, the board has a certain number of cells and a certain number of rows. What number is this? This is 7, coming from K. This is the number of cells. And this 7 here, which is I, is the number of rows. So that's it. Cell number for K, row number for I, okay. So now I'm gonna put same thing here, 8 by 8, generate chessboard, same thing. Let's choose a 4 by 4. What's happening? No, there's some errors. What? Call me? What call me? Call me was before, a long time ago. Okay, hold on. Now there's something with the cache. Huh? Oh, sorry. Yeah, in the division. This was an example. Okay. Okay, let's see. So 4 by 4. Right. Oh, 4 by 4. You want to make the border dynamic. Perfect. So then I know that the number the number of cells multiplied by their width should be the width of my container. The number of cells by the height should be the height of my container. So for an 8 by 8, we know that it was 450. 450, 8 by 8. So 450 divided by 8. It's 56. So let's use 57 just to be safe. Okay. So then let's call this wrapper width. So the variable wrapper width will be equal to cell number times 57 or 56? 57. And the same thing for the height will be wrapper height, wrapper h will be now the row numbers times 57. So then chest frame.style width is going to be wrapper width plus the pixels, and the height equals to wrapper height plus pixels, concatenating the value. Alright, so then we should always have an exact wrapper always on the middle according to the size of my input. So we're gonna have a 20 by 20. That's something huge. Bang. There we go. 10 by 10. Nice. What about different numbers? 5 by 7. Will that work? It works. Huh? It is centered. Oh, that's because it was 56 point something, and I made it 2057. Okay. So 8, generate our chessboard 8 by 8, bang, and we're done.